All right, welcome everybody to this Cloud Maker uh, Expert Talk episode on best practices of Microsoft 365 Cloud App Security. My name is Dwayne Natwick. I am a Microsoft MVP and a Cloud Training Architect Lead for Opsagility and Skill Me Up. I have multiple Microsoft 365 and Azure certifications. I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer and a regional lead for the program. And you can find me on the social media links provided on the slide.
Hello, my name is Tim Hermie. I'm from Belgium. I'm a Microsoft MVP Enterprise Mobility and a modern workplace architect at Synergics Belgium. So my experience is with a big focus on Intune and endpoint management, but also the EMS stack. So I've got a little bit broader security stack I also take with me. So MCAS, MDATP. I'm one of the 8 founding board members of MC2MC, the Microsoft Cloud and Client Management community in Belgium. Passionate about connecting with people, so if you have questions, you can always contact me with my Twitter tag at Cloudboy, with my email address. And I'm also a frequent blogger at cloudboy.be with a big focus on Intune, endpoint management, and WVD.
All right. So some things we're going to talk about today is we're going to start by setting some foundation in terms of what some of the challenges are around a remote environment, and then how and what is cloud app security and how can cloud app security protect our organization, what we can use it for to monitor and manage best practices within our environment. And then we're going to finish up by talking about how you can utilize cloud app security and feed information for cloud app security into a SIM solution such as Azure Sentinel. So let's start off our talk here with talking about what some of the challenges are around a remote user environment. As we have gone through a really tough time here in the current year, a lot of organizations have been forced to go remote entirely for their entire workforce, more so than they may have in the past. And so what we're going to talk about here today is what some of those challenges are and how we can address some of those challenges with cloud app security. So before we dive any deep into cloud app security, let's talk about what those what we need to think about with the mobile workforce and what those factions are when we enable a remote workforce, of what we need to take into account. And what that is we have our users who want access to files. They want the quickest way and the most efficient way to access the files, and they want those files now. But we have this tug of war that takes place between the users and the organization, because the organization wants to continue to maintain the confidentiality and integrity of those files, while also taking it into account and do the balancing act with the availability of those files, but making sure that they're secure. If they're a regulated organization, make sure that they're in compliance, and make sure that all of the bandwidth requirements and internet and access and for audio and video needs are met. As we do more and more video conferencing, that becomes more and more important within the organization. And as users and organizations start moving into remote workforce, we start seeing within that user and organization ecosystem and that tug of war potential threats that might come into play. And we're talking about typically in here the possible threats that might come through the user environment not being properly trained, not having proper mechanisms in place to protect that environment. And a lot of those come in the part of shadow IT, where a user finds the path of least resistance to gain access to something, and it might be outside of corporate standards. It might be utilizing a different cloud application to access that information. It could be from unpatched and unmanaged personal devices, and all of that can create some level of data leakage, and having corporate data that is no longer within the confines of the organization's ability to manage that and to make sure that it's protected, make sure that privacy is properly adhered to. And that gets us really into then the cloud applications. And obviously, anybody that gets on the internet knows there are a wide range of applications. I'm sure you have hundreds, if not thousands, of them on your smartphone, whether it's an iPhone or an Android device or a Surface Duo. You know, the applications that are out there are enormous, and what we use those for varies. And within an organization, this is where we start to see leakage come in terms of that shadow IT and the possibility that files and data might that's sensitive to our organization might find its way onto other devices that we don't manage, into applications that we don't have control over. And that then brings us to what is cloud app security. And Tim, why don't you tell everyone and talk to everybody about cloud app security and how that affects the organization?
Yes, thanks, Wayne. It's like you said, the landscape has shifted enormously. Back in the days, everyone was sitting at his desk working in his perimeter at work, but nowadays we're working from everywhere. The COVID situation is a real good example of it. But not only that, we're also working on different devices, not only on Windows 10 anymore. We're working on our smartphones or our iPads, and cloud apps are are really integrated in that. The cloud services are key to today's IT strategy. If we look at the stats, there are a whole bunch of cloud applications that we can use now that are integrated with Azure AD. 75% of companies consider SaaS tools essential to their business. It makes them more productive. We step away from the line of business apps, the legacy apps. The downside is we have to monitor them, we have to maintain them and govern them. So 61% of applications IT isn't aware of. How can we fix that? How can we monitor them? And 80% of workers use non-sanctioned cloud apps. So that's the shadow IT part Dwayne was talking about. How can we protect it? How can we take control over that? So we're looking at cloud access security brokers. And let me read the definition first. On-premises or cloud-based security policy enforcement points placed between cloud service consumers and cloud service providers to combine and interject enterprise security policies as the cloud-based resources are accessed. COSPs consolidate multiple types of security policy enforcement. So by 2020, a lot of enterprises will be using COSPs, and we'll be talking about the Microsoft solution here, Microsoft Cloud App Security. It will be integrated. The project I'm doing the last year, we mostly see that we start with the basic. We start with moving their workloads to the cloud. First thing is mostly their mails. We move them to Exchange Online. Then we plug in Intune device management to the cloud. And we see that the demand for security the last year since COVID started has only gotten bigger and bigger. So we're implementing a lot of MCAS solutions now, and the whole Microsoft ecosystem is really great. It all works together very well. If you implement MDATP together with MCAS, you can benefit, get the most benefit out of it. So what are some of the top use cases? At first, we're going to monitor and discover the apps. Which are the apps that we find on the devices of our users? Which apps are they using? We can see who accesses them. How are they governed? Are they okay? Can we allow them? That's one part. Another part is labeling. We can label our sensitive information. I'll give some use cases later in the session also, some more in detail. We can control and monitor. Also good to know, we can see at where we are residing. If we're in the corporate headquarters, we can get access. If we're working from home, we can only view certain documents, not download them. So the use cases are enormous in cloud app security. The 4 big pillars. Discovery, the first one. We're always going to start with discovery. We're going to monitor. I'm going to show you in the demo later what we can integrate. We're going to monitor what applications are installed, what are our users using. Are those applications allowed? The second big pillar, information protection. We want to take control over our data, of course. It's also a big issue these days because, like I said, everyone is working on multiple devices. How can we protect our data? If you're working on a bring your own device, we want to protect it. We don't want it that our data gets in a personal drive or Google Drive. We want to protect that at some level, and we can do that, of course, with MCAS. Threat detection. If we get a detection that our computer is infected, we block the access to certain apps until the threat is resolved. It's also possible. And in-session control. We control and limit user access based on session context. So the four big pillars, the discovery, the information protection, threat detection, and in-session control are really important in the MCAS world. So what is cloud app security? It's a comprehensive solution that can help your organization and every organization as you move to take full advantage of the promise of cloud applications while keeping you in control through improved visibility into network cloud activity. Consider the following features, of course. There are different licenses. You have to understand the security architecture. It works with connectors. And you have to have some understanding of the conditional access app control protection policies. But we'll dive deeper into that later. What is good to take away from this slide, it's really a really broad suite, which you can do a lot. And I'll dive deeper into each pillar in a bit. Yeah, a uniquely integrated CASP. So this is the power of the Microsoft ecosystem. We can use MCAS and integrate it with a lot of products. We can integrate with Intune, where it will work together with network level blocking of content. It works together fine. We can let it talk together with Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection, data loss prevention policies. We can monitor with cloud app security, and like Dwayne also said, we can also extend it to Azure Sentinel, to a SIEM, which is also a really great feature. The power of the Microsoft ecosystem is that it all works together fine and also easily. You don't have to do a lot of technical tricks to get it working together. It works with connectors. You put some switches on in the dashboard, and it integrates together nicely. So how does it work? We're going to discover, we're going to use the traffic logs data to discover the cloud apps that are in our organization. The cloud apps will get a rating. It's a Microsoft rating. You can get some policies in place that if they get a bad rating, they are blocked immediately. We're going to manage them, the discovered cloud apps. We're going to evaluate the risk. Are they okay? Can we allow them in our organization? And if we don't allow them, we can simply tag them and unsanction them, so they won't get allowed. What is the great advantage here? Let's say we're talking about Dropbox. If we unsanction Dropbox and an end user will open it in his browser, he will go to www.dropbox.com. It will get blocked logically. In Edge, Smart Screen will kick in. If he does it in Chrome or in Mozilla or every browser he wants, it will also get blocked. But even if he tries to run the installer, the Dropbox installer, it will also get blocked. So it blocks really at network level, which is really powerful. Like I said, it works with application connectors, so it's really easy to set up. I'm not saying it's a simple product or an easy product, but if you dive deep into it, It will be technical, maybe not a little bit complicated, but the connections you can set up through all of the Microsoft products are really easy to set up. Conditional access, app control. Yeah, you can leverage reverse proxy infrastructure and integrate Azure AD conditional access to configure real-time monitoring and control. And this is also a really, really great feature, the conditional access app control, which we'll talk about later more in depth. So the first pillar, discovery, we're going to monitor. And this is also what I do if I implement it with my clients. It will also, I work with phases. I will monitor for weeks and see what goes in. I will put in some policies, of course, from the start, and some governance policies that really badly rated apps are blocked immediately. But we want to monitor and see what is happening. We want to see which applications are in our organization, which can we allow. We can do a risk assessment. Can we allow those applications? We can rely on the information we get from Microsoft. And of course, we can put in alerts, which is really nice. If risky cloud usage has been triggered, we will get alerts. At the first phase, I'm always doing it like this. We will monitor, see what happens, put in some alerts that we get alerted, but not blocking much at the first level. We will do that later, of course. So the first pillar, discovery, really important. Take your time for it. Make sure you assess enough. Take your time to assess enough, and then you can move on to the second phase. Information protection for cloud apps, also really, really important. What can you do? Gain cloud data visibility, enforce data loss protection policies and control sharing, of course. And again, get alerts and investigate. It's always the same flow. We'll get alerts at the first phase, and you can block at the second phase. What is gain cloud data visibility? At sharing level, we can work with classification levels, with risk scores, detect and manage third apps access, the data loss prevention policies. Yeah, we can govern the data in the cloud with granular data loss protection policies, and we can automate it, of course, also. Yeah. Threat detection, also a really good one. Let's say that our device that is Intune managed will get malware. We will get some flow in MCAS that we block access to our corporate data until the malware has been resolved. Here we work together with Intune and MDATP, of course. Like I said, the ecosystem that works together. Behavioral analytics is in it, advanced investigation, and the threat intelligence leverages the Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph. It gives us unique insights informed by trillions of signals across Microsoft. And this is also the power of the products. Not only we are using the Microsoft products, but it will feed all the data from every organization into the big Microsoft cloud, and the AI does its work. So it will only get better and better the more data that will come in. How can we deploy it? First of all, you have to have the right role. Global administrator, of course, is the God role. Compliance administrator, security reader in Azure Active Directory or Microsoft 365. To deploy cloud app security, you have some steps to follow. First, we will set up cloud discovery. Second step, instant visibility, protection, and governance actions for your apps. The third step, control the cloud apps with policies. So first we will, like I said, always work in phases. We will monitor, we will follow up, we will investigate, and then we will control with policies. You can personalize your experience, and we can organize the data according to our needs. And this will be different for every organization. Every organization has his own needs, his own governance. So every organization will have different policies. There's no baseline that you can use to deploy in every organization. So take care of that also.
All right, let me give you a break there, Tim, and let's talk about how cloud app security can continuously protect your organization as we move forward through gone through all those steps. So what do those steps do for you, and how do we start to then utilize cloud app security to protect? And really, go back to that level of shadow IT that we talked about at the beginning, and we've talked about around from discovering from the discovery standpoint of what we need to discover. We start discovering those cloud apps and discover what users have in place that might not meet or match our organizational policies. And then as we do that, we start identifying the levels of risk within those applications as well. So what are the how can they create some sort of adverse effect? What vulnerability do they put into play within our environment? What risk do they have, and what level of risk do we have to work to remediate and avoid through the different cloud apps? And then we begin to then evaluate the compliance and evaluate what applications are taking place within our environment, whether we are going to block them, or maybe we've determined that there is a business need, and we talk to the users that are using them. We see a significant number of users, and they have a specific business need for them, and we find that that the level of risk that they put on our organization is not one that that is going to bear any issues. For example, you can think of maybe utilizing a cloud app like Trello for your project management and managing projects. There's not a it's more task oriented with from notes, and if we block and avoid them putting maybe documents into Trello, maybe then we can decrease our risk from that standpoint. And as we continue through this cycle of continuously monitoring and managing those cloud apps, we can continuously look at that and continuously watch, analyze what that usage is, and continuously monitor. And maybe that takes us back through, and we find that there is additional risk to that, and there's additional compliance within GDPR or HIPAA regulations for personal health information or personal identifiable information that we're finding is leaking out in some of these cloud applications that we need to make an adjustment to our policies. So going back in a little bit deeper into that discovery and what Tim talked about when we were going through, and we keep bringing up discovery, and it's it's one of the more important phases here, because before we can do anything in terms of managing and monitoring and protecting our organization, we need to discover what's there, and we need to know what is there. And part of the issue with shadow IT, and the reason it is shadow IT, is because the people that are monitoring or managing security and our IT infrastructure generally don't know that those cloud apps are there, and that's why they're shadow IT. So doing the discovery and utilizing cloud app security for that discovery process of reviewing those 16,000 plus cloud apps that are in the catalog help the security and IT organization to understand what is in place and what might be used out there, and what a one-off user has installed that might be a risk to our organization, and understanding that and assessing those risk factors and understanding those usage patterns of those applications. And then we can then take control of those applications and determine what we're going to utilize, how we're going to block, whether we're going to block those applications, or whether we're going to allow those with some policies under how they're used to avoid risks to our organization. And with that goes into Defender for endpoints, and we're going to talk. Our talk on Monday that Tim and I have is around Microsoft and Windows Defender, and how we can utilize the advanced threat protection capabilities of that. And that all ties in as well into cloud app security. And Defender is a key piece of the overall ecosystem of Microsoft 365, as well as Azure Active Directory identity management. So, finding those apps and discovering those apps, and then as you can see in this slide, that there are scores based on those apps in terms of, and they're put in a threat score in terms of red, yellow, and green to understand what might be a level of threat for that application within your environment. And you can continue to then monitor that within the Cloud App Security dashboard and realize and mark whether and tag those whether they're sanctioned or unsanctioned, and determine whether we're going to continue to allow them or not. And architecturally, how cloud app security works is it is taking into account it has the catalog of all those cloud applications, and it is then using the traffic and monitoring that traffic for what is happening within your organization, to discover and analyze that information through the traffic that's going through the public internet, through firewalls, through proxies, and then those app connectors then go through management and through our cloud app security dashboard and our configuration. If we have a policy in place, it's then looking and it's discovering those applications. It's looking at the app connectors and then allowing that through to connect into through an API to our to those cloud apps, and connecting those apps to the policy so that we can govern those applications properly, rather than them just being publicly consumed by the user. We now have a level of control over whether those are sanctioned or unsanctioned, understanding whether there's any risks coming through them, potential threats, and then we can block those and respond to those accordingly. And as I was saying, when we'll talk about connecting that into Azure Sentinel or another security event manager, we can watch those logs and watch those traffic logs and investigate those logs, because of the integration that this all has within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, as well as the Azure Sentinel ecosystem of a security incident and event manager. And then just to kind of bring it all together, a little bit of controlling those cloud apps and utilizing policies and creating those policies that define the way that your users behave in the cloud. How are they behaving, what those policies are, and performing the process to control risk with policies within the dashboard to create from a template or a query, or fine-tune those policies to achieve the results that you're looking for. And then continue to add automated options that allow you to respond and remediate to those risks automatically. And I believe, Tim, you're going to show everybody a little bit about these policies and how we can utilize these policies and make these happen.
Yes, let me share my screen fast. All right. First thing to know, if you want to access Cloud App Security, you'll always get your custom link. You'll have your own your own custom link per tenant. If you want to access it easily, you can always type in portal.cloudappsecurity.com, which will get redirected automatically. I'm going to show you the policies part. I'm going to just throw in something else first. Really important here is your base setup, your app connectors. You can connect them here. And if you can see, there are a lot of apps that you can connect. A little trick here, if you add Office 365, not everything gets added automatically. And if you go to Edit Settings, you can activate extra components here. And the AD apps is not activated standard, so you have to cross it here. For me, it's really important because a lot of applications are getting registered in Azure AD at the moment, and also a lot of hacks are happening there. So we want them in MCOS also. We want them in Cloud App Security also. So this is a thing that you have to take care of. If you connect your Office 365, make sure you edit it and add your apps here also. Another thing is the settings. If you want to work together with the whole ecosystem, you want MCOS to talk with everything that you have set up. So also good to know, you will do this here. If we go to settings, we will enable Defender for identity integration. We will trigger Azure AD identity protection, information protection, and this is everything that you can find in the settings pane. So really good to know, if you start with Cloud App Security, go through the settings pane first, see what you can activate and get talking together. If you add your app connectors, also go into detail into the edit and make sure you apply everything and get all the data that you want. If we want to talk about policies, we'll go to Cloud App Security. We have a dashboard, Discover. This is the discovery phase where we can find everything that's getting discovered. Investigate is where we will investigate. We're talking about policies here, so we'll take the control part. If you click on policies, you'll see that I have a lot of policies set up already. The good thing here is Microsoft has a whole lot of templates that you can use. You can start with creating a policy. What policy is it? Is it an activity policy, an access policy, an app discovery policy? But you can also start with a template. So if we have a new risky app, you can apply the template and you will see it will get filled in automatically. If you have an app that has a high severity, a really risky score, you can customize it yourself. So you can start with a template, and that's also what I recommend. If you start playing with Cloud App Security, look into the templates, adjust them to your company's standards, and make sure you get alerted. This is in the first phase. You will always monitor and follow up your alerts. If you see that your policy is working good, you don't have to fine-tune it anymore. You can already tag your risky apps as unsanctioned, so you can automate it, that they don't can get used by your end users, for example. So good to know here. If you want to make policies, you can go to the policies blade, create one from scratch, which is a little bit trickier. So if you're new to MCOS, dive into the templates first, look what you want, choose the category. Let's go over some templates. There are really a great bunch of templates here. Mass download by a single user. If a single user downloads more than 50 downloads within 1 minute, maybe something's wrong. Maybe he's getting data on his device for leaks. You can monitor it. If you want to use it, template, you can click on it and fine tune it yourself. Let me just go over a few more templates or the policies that I have set up that are interesting. Risky sign-in works together. If you have a risky sign-in, you can block it automatically. The golden ticket usage is the pass ticket, identity theft, or some well-known ones. Data exfiltration, malicious OAuth apps consent is also a really interesting one. Mass download by a single user, you can set it up. Let's go further. Impossible travel. If we log in, or in my case, if I log in Belgium right now, and in 5 minutes someone is logging in from the States, from where Dwayne is residing, I can't get there in 5 minutes, so it will trigger an alert. Like I said, in the first phase, always monitor. Make sure you follow up on your events, on your alerts. In the second phase, you can automatically remediate them or block some stuff or put some actions after them. So what do I want to take away from here? Look at the templates. Let's look if something is there to recycle, because there are a whole bunch of templates there. recycle them, start with monitoring, and don't forget, go to the settings pane, connect your apps, connect everything that you can, that you have set up, that you are licensed for, and also don't forget with the app connectors to edit them and to select everything so that you get data from everything in there. Okay, Dwayne, back to you. Or back to the slides at least.
All right. I think, yeah, so from the standpoint, I think you're going to cover now how to create a policy and utilize some conditional access within within the Cloud App Security service.
So conditional access app control, for me, conditional access is a really powerful tool, not only in MCAS, but all the way. We can do a lot with it. Context-aware session policies, control the access to the cloud apps. When do we give access to cloud apps? When do we give access to sensitive data? And we can base it on user, on location, on device risk, on managed device, bring your own device, and apps. So we can do a lot of things with the conditional access app control. Let's say, for an example, you don't want corporate data to be downloaded on a bring your own device. You can perfectly do it there, that they can read it, but they cannot download it. What's also good to know here, investigate and enforce app and data restrictions, and unique integration with Azure Active Directory. So everything integrates really good. We can limit activities performed within user sessions in SaaS apps based on user identity, location, device state, so managed device, unmanaged device, and detect sign-in risk level. So if you are logging in from an IP that's on the blacklist, you can also trigger some events there. So conditional access app control, it integrates really good with Azure AD conditional access and allows selective routing to MCAS. And it's a good figure there. 58% of coworkers or workers have accidentally shared sensitive data to the wrong person, and it happens to everyone. I've also sent some mails to the wrong persons. If you're typing in a mail and putting the wrong email address there, so it's something that happens, but we can take control over it. That's what we have to take away here. It leverages the Azure data centers across the world to optimize performance and user experience. So also really good. Enables powerful use cases such as monitoring and controlling actions for business-to-business users or unmanaged devices. Yeah, to the next slide, Dwayne. Conditional access. For people who don't really know it, it works with an if-then scenario. Let's say if a device is managed in Intune, we give access. If a device is not managed in Intune, we require MFA to give access. The possibilities are endless here with conditional access. We can give another scenario. The risk event, if I'm logging in from Ghent, I'm giving access. If I'm logging in 5 minutes later from the States, which is impossible time control of time to get there, I'll just block the access. If I'm logging in from a familiar IP address, I get access. If I'm logging in from a blacklisted IP address, I require password change. Those are all options of conditional access. Azure AD conditional access. The use case, prevent the download of files. You can click a bit through that we can see everything happening already. So the device is unmanaged. All the rest is okay. So the role is in a good group. The location is okay. The last sign-in is okay. Platform is Windows. The device is fully healthy, fully patched, latest Windows version. Everything okay, but it's unmanaged. So we pick another session risk here. And this is where Azure AD conditional access comes in. Will allow viewing, but will protect it from downloading. So the scenario, this is one scenario, prevent downloads of files on unmanaged devices. if they will be working on a managed device, they will follow the same flow. The user device will be okay, the session risk will be green, and he will be allowed to download it on the managed device. This is one of the examples of use cases, but there are a million of use cases of what you can do with Microsoft Cloud App Security, of course. Cloud App Security integrates with a lot of things, like we already said. It's one big ecosystem. Azure Active Directory, it pulls a lot of data from Azure Active Directory. Azure Information Protection, we're talking about labeling here, sensitive information, non-sensitive information, personal information, personal. Microsoft Intune also works together, and those three together help protect any app in our organization. So conditional access app control, if we look at the Box app, it will talk together. It seems good or it seems risky, and Microsoft Cloud App Security will be the broker of it. We will get a lot of data from there, and we can then apply policies with conditional access app control to either allow it or disallow it. Risk score, if we see at all the apps that are in MCAS and the cloud application that are available there, not only the one that we have found on the devices, but the whole catalog, Microsoft will give them a rating or a risk score. It's a number from 1 to 9 or to 10, I think. Green, orange, and red. Green will be okay, of course. Red will be not okay. And how will they score it, Microsoft? And it's 4 categories: general, security, compliance-wise, and legal. So if you click on an app, and maybe I can show it a bit later if you have time, you can see in detail why Microsoft is giving that app that score. So you can take the advice of Microsoft or see why has that app only a rating of 2 because it's not compliant at certain ISO standards, or security-wise it's not protected with a certificate or more stuff. And this is how Microsoft is giving the ratings to the cloud apps. Discovered apps, good to know the difference here. We have the session catalog where every app is in, so you can already block certain apps that you know you don't want. If you're working with discovered apps, it will be the apps that will be found on the devices of the end users. You can see there also with the dots. So these are all ratings of 10, all great apps following Microsoft standards. And you can see, but I'll show this in the demo later. It's maybe hard to explain here, but we have the discovered apps. Good to know here. The apps are discovered on the devices that are present and managed or unmanaged in your organization. The Cloud Discovery dashboard, you can make multiple dashboards. You can have an endpoint dashboard, an app catalog dashboard. Good to know. You work with different dashboards. You can drill down and search stuff. You can also see, and it's also nice, how much traffic has been generated to that certain cloud app or to that one cloud app, of how many traffic does one user generate to one cloud app. It's also possible to see. The dashboards are really great. You can customize them if you want. So definitely have a look at that also.
Well, you want to show everybody
yes,
a little bit about the dashboard?
I'll show a little bit. Okay, is my screen visible?
There we go. You got it now.
Yes. So Cloud App Security, Discover. If you go to the dashboard, you can have your dashboards here. If you want more dashboards, you can make them here or see them here. Discovered apps, like I said, the apps that are discovered in your organization. So these are the apps that are present on the devices. Now, this is my tenant that I'm showing you guys. There are only 5 devices in it, so there won't be that much of amazing data in it. But let's see here. Netflix got a rating of 8. And you want to know why does it only get 8 or not 10? We can click on it, and like I said, it works in 4 categories. General category, the category when it's founded, domain registration. Is everything okay here? Security, and you can see here it supports SAML. So Microsoft doesn't like that. No multi-factor authentication. Microsoft also doesn't like that, and I understand this one also. And the third pillar, compliance. So you can see it gets 10 in general, 8 in security, because it's missing 2 key elements. Compliance-wise, it's not that good. It is not compliant with Safe Harbor. It is compliant with SOX. Legal is okay. So this is how Microsoft will put the score on your application. So Netflix is pretty much okay. Let's go a little bit further. There, we have some other stuff here. Facebook is an interesting one. Facebook only gets a rating of 5. If you go look here, general only 8. No disaster recovery plan. If you go to security, no data classification, no admin audit trail, no IP address restriction, compliance, not so good, no ISOs. And this is how Microsoft is rating every application. What I want to show you here, the discovered apps, like I said, are the apps that are discovered on the devices, the apps that are present in your organization. If you want to block something before it gets installed, you can go to Cloud App Catalog. And here you can look for all cloud apps that are known in MCAS. So if we go, and I'll give the example of Dropbox. If you go to Dropbox, you can see here it gets a good rating. And here we have 2 actions. We can either sanction it. This will say that we will allow it in our organization, or we can unsanction it. If we tag the unsanctioned tag, we will not allow the use of Dropbox in our organization. What will happen if our end users are using it? And I can show you in Edge, if we open Dropbox here, of course, Microsoft Defender Smart Screen will kick in. So it works together, and it requires a setup from Intune also. If you want to set this up, you can go to my blog, and I've blogged about it in a step-by-step guide. So this is really neat. Defender Smart Screen will kick in. But this is normal. But let's say, let's go to Chrome and do the exact same. If you open Dropbox here, it will also be blocked. So it's also blocked on network level. I don't get a big screen here that it's blocked from Smart Screen. If you go to my notifications, you will see I get an error from MDATP. This will be shown in the next session I'm giving with Dwayne on Monday. There will be an alert there now that the content is blocked. So this is also already really neat. But what's even more neat is I have the installer on my desktop. Let's try to run it. And you'll see that it won't work either. So it's really blocking at every level, just with a simple click on the dashboard here when we unsanction an app. So the setup of this is not hard to do. What is my advice? First, like I said, monitor, put in some policies, put in some alerting. And if you see what's been used a lot, what you don't like, you can put some automation in it. That the apps that are not with a good score that have not a good score get unsanctioned automatically, and they will be blocked on every level on the managed devices where your end users are working on. All right, back to you, Dwayne.
All right. There's some very powerful tools there with.
It's a really powerful tool, yeah.
All right, so let's talk about now Azure Sentinel and how that works together with Cloud App Security. And if you're not familiar with Azure Sentinel, Sentinel is a cloud-native security incident and event management system. So if your organization has a security operations center or a SOC, you probably have some level of a SIM in place right now, but and if you didn't, Azure Sentinel is a very good way to start adopting that and bring that in play. There's no infrastructure setup or maintenance, so some key things around setting up a SIM. A lot of times SIMs are very expensive to implement from both a time and cost standpoint. there is a lot of integration and controls around how and what applications and services, both within the Microsoft 365, the Azure, as well as third-party environments that you can connect to, and allows you to detect, collect that information, detect potential threats, investigate those threats, and then respond to those threats. So, some key points and pieces there. And I've done some different talks already and expert talks around Azure Sentinel and around security with Azure Security Center and Azure Sentinel. So I'm not going to get into a huge amount of detail on Sentinel today, but just understand how some of the features and functionality of Azure Sentinel, and then how we can utilize that with and integrate that with some of our existing tools and data sources. One of those being Cloud App Security, which allows you then to connect that information and utilize the dashboard and the information that's coming into Cloud App Security to monitor the compliance of those applications, but also if we see those threats and get logged on those threats, such as Tim had given examples to, such as him being in Belgium and somebody and him logging into the app, and then 5 minutes later somebody logging in as his identity from United States, understanding how and seeing those and being able to then to have those logs tagged and alert within an event management system, along with all of your other network alerts, your other identity alerts, your application alerts, your on-premises alerts from your firewalls, and all of that integrated in one location. That's what Azure Sentinel is going to do for you. And it allows you then to optimize what you need, and how you can then manage and monitor your environment. So, and the key point here is around really the data sources. And I'm going to go in a second and show you how quick and easy it is to create and connect a data source, that data source in this case being Cloud App Security, and bring all of these capabilities of the capabilities of Cloud App Security, and then tie them into the capabilities of Azure Sentinel and all of the threat intelligence, the artificial intelligence and cognitive services and learning services within the Azure and Microsoft ecosystem to create a fully secure and compliant environment. So let's go and look at that right now. So I'm already logged into my dashboard just for time purposes. I'm in Azure Sentinel. Key thing around Azure Sentinel is you have to connect a log analytics. The back end of Azure Sentinel, just like many other monitoring and management services within Azure, Microsoft 365, all tie into Azure Monitor and Azure Log Analytics. So I've already created a Log Analytics workspace, but I don't have any services connected to Azure Sentinel. As you can see, I have no data services connected. And so what I want to do is, in my configuration here, is I can scroll down and you can see it's not just Microsoft 365. It's not just Azure. If you're running a F5, a Fortinet firewall, if you're running any Cisco equipment, you can bring some of those third-party services in here. AWS is in here somewhere as well. Here's AWS. CloudTrail logs can be fed into here. So if you have a multi-cloud type environment of both on-premises, utilizing another cloud provider, as well as Microsoft 365 and Azure, it all can tie into Sentinel. So let's go back down here to Microsoft Cloud App Security, and we can see in here, if we go to open the connector page, what we can do with Cloud App Security. And we can see we have certain requirements here in terms of our licensing. As Tim mentioned before, there's certain licenses for Cloud App Security. There's licenses that we need to have to be able to connect data sources for Cloud App Security as well, and those being Global Administrator and Security Administrator. But you can see I've met all these prerequisites. And then it tells you exactly what you need to do for your configuration. And if you're wondering what it does beyond that, we can very easily just click on here and it will go into the docs section of Microsoft, and it will explain to you everything that the integration does. So very helpful from that standpoint. But from here, we can tie in the alerts and the cloud discovery logs that that we've talked about in Cloud App Security and bring that into our dashboards within Azure Sentinel and have that one central source as well to manage that. And we can apply those changes, and here we can enable incidents. One quick thing around Cloud App Security, though, is there's another step that we're going to have to do, and that is within the Cloud App Security dashboard. If we go into our dashboard here and go up to our gear and do a security extension, here is where we connect our SIEM agents in here, which I had already done previously and had forgotten to remove it. But if we had gone in here, we can create that wizard. We can create a new agent in here. But if this was not added, we can, and I can delete this real quick. I have now a plus sign where I could do a generic third-party SIEM, connect, if I'm already using a SIEM, I can connect that to Cloud App Security, or I can very easily connect Azure Sentinel. And here I've got my alerts, my discovery logs, all of that data stream going into Azure Sentinel as well. And just this quick, congratulations, I'm connected to Azure Sentinel. If I go back out here into my Sentinel environment, you can see I now have one data source connected. So just that quick and easy. Now I've started building essentially a SOC within our environment to help manage and monitor our services as well, not just within multiple dashboards. We can bring that all into one dashboard. So hopefully everybody feels real good about what we can do in terms of utilizing the power of Cloud App Security to help to meet some of those challenges that we have with the remote user environment and shadow IT and unsanctioned and maybe risky apps within our environment, and how we can continue to manage and monitor those within our organization, utilizing the tools that we have within Microsoft 365, as well as the Azure environment. So that brings us to the end of this session. Thank you very much for listening to this CloudMaker Expert Talk episode. My name is Dwayne Natwick.
And my name is Tim Hermé.
And any of these sessions, as well as future sessions, can be found on skillmeup.com, as well as the recording of these sessions are also making their way onto the Skill Me Up YouTube channel. So feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Generally, it takes 2-3 weeks after we've recorded it for those to show up on the YouTube channel. If you want to see this right away and review this again, you can go on to skillmeup.com, get a trial subscription for that, and you can then see this session and all past sessions, as well as future live sessions within the live event scheduler. So thank you very much for listening in and attending, and have a great day.